Hey guys, Ben here. Welcome back to another video or another live stream. We are here with Declan. You guys may know Declan from his channel. He was very consistent in the past, a little bit less now, but he is a legend in the DC world. I'm sure some of you guys followed him back in the day. But how are you doing today, Dec?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Appreciate the slander just to start off the stream straight away. But I mean,
Sorry.
not wrong. But yeah, I'm good. Good to kind of be back in the DC world a little bit more recently. I have missed it. It's my bread and butter at the end of the day. So yeah, good to be back in.
Yeah, and welcome to everyone that have started to join us in the live chat. I can see Nathan has been here for a while. Owlwatch is here. Owlwatch just became a new member, so shout out to Owlwatch. And Nathan has been a member for 17 months, it says, so that's a long time. So shout out to both of you. We'll answer your question in a minute, Nathan. But as we get into this stream, I just want to remind you guys, if you want to send in any questions, any theories as we go throughout this live stream, please be sure to send them in by Super Chats. Obviously, you're supporting the channel, but also it pops up on the screen and we'll be sure to answer it straight away. We have like a bunch of main topics, and so that's the best way to kind of interject between those topics. But yeah, so welcome to everyone joining. And if you guys haven't checked out Dec's channel, we'll put it in the chat. It's DC Central.
Yeah, that name needs to change, but
it used to be. What did you used to call yourself? I've completely forgot. Like you changed it at one point.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Actually, it was DCTV
just...
Talk is what it used to be. And then I changed it to DC Central because I was trying to be a bit more
broad,
broad, and not. But then I just kind of ended up sticking to Arrowverse stuff. Classic stuff with me on YouTube really is that I think I plan on doing stuff and then I never do it.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of hard to keep up.
Like now I need to change DC Central because I've started making non-DC content on there now. So.
I saw you making a Marvel video. I was watching it the other day. What are the missing Phase 6 films? So yeah, go check out Dec's channel. He has got some videos up there that are like MCU related as well as DC. So maybe you guys will like that. But yeah, welcome Cal. I see Cal is here and everyone else. So let's go ahead and get into our first main topic of the live stream. And the first main topic is all to do with the rumor that Warner Brothers might be getting sold. Now, nothing has been officially confirmed in regards to this, but there was a report. Don't actually remember where it was from, but I just remember I made a video on it and it seemed like somewhat credible. But mainly, I don't really want to talk about like, is it going to happen or not? Like, the thing is, you remember when Disney bought Fox? It was a whole big conversation. It's like, okay, can a big studio buy another studio and then keep, this sort of like healthy film landscape? So what do you think about it? It doesn't even matter who is buying it, but the concept of Warner Brothers being sold again, like they've been sold all the time at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be crazy, especially because Universal and Warner Brothers, at least in my eyes, are very on par in regards to like the size of the studio.
Very similar, yeah.
But I don't think it should happen purely for the fact of it's like, there's that fear that the mouse is, taking over everything. And it's the same thing that applies here. Like, I don't want too many studios to merge because it just means that one company is going to own everything, and that's just
it's
scary.
all going to be the same type of film. Like, it's just going to be much less diverse. I think that is the main problem. It's not that
we've seen that with Disney. Like what they've taken over with Fox. Like, I mean, there's obviously still been, Fox has still been doing their own stuff. Searchlight is going to continue to do its own thing as it has been, but yeah, like Disney's taken over everything, and they've on the Fox side, and it's even like I think the biggest problem with it is all the Disney Plus stuff. Like, they're just taking a lot of Fox properties and dumping it on Disney Plus, or kind of making cheap content out of Fox properties, to just stick on Disney Plus if they need stuff. Like the biggest offender, which I still have not seen it because I refuse to watch it, to be honest, is the animated Night at the Museum film.
Yep.
Which they made, which like the Night at the Museum trilogy is like so close to my heart. Like those first two films in particular are like childhood favorites of mine. And when I heard that they were making like a new animated one, I was kind of interested at first, and then I saw it, like the pictures of it and stuff, and I was like, absolutely not. and that would be my fear if, you know, Warner Brothers went to Universal, is it would just kind of be a similar thing. But I know that obviously David Zaslav, like his whole kind of thing, at least what's been rumored to be his thing, is that he's basically just building Warner Brothers up to be sold.
Yeah, I heard about that a while ago.
Yeah, so that has been in the back of my mind, like ever since he took over as CEO.
Yeah, I think I agree everything that you said. Like, if you look at what Disney has done to Fox, it's true. Like, everything has been tamed down. Everything has been diluted, I guess you could say, because Disney has a very strict way of doing things. And even though they give Fox and some of the properties some leeway to be a bit different, it's still, you can see, like, it's not a Fox film. Like, you know, back when they were making Star Wars, back when they were, you know, having all these great properties. So I don't like it because it's true, like, there's much less diversity in content. I think that is the main problem that they're going to have to deal with if this does go through. So the thing is, guys, the rumor is all to do with Universal specifically trying to buy Warner Brothers. But it's true, like, if you look back like a couple of months ago, there was that rumor or report that David Zaslav was trying to basically build up everything, build up the DCEU, and then sell it off, right? Like, you've seen Warner Brothers be bought by AT&T, and then Discovery took over literally really soon after. And so if there's another regime change, like, I think if you look at the content of specifically DC and what they're trying to build with James Gunn, if there's another takeover and those guys come in and they're like, nah, we don't like what you're doing, like, it's going to mess up DC again. So I don't like it for DC, number one, but I don't like it for the diversity of the, you know, different studios' content. That's a big problem.
I think like when it comes to like all the DC stuff, it's like you say, it's just going to mess everything up again. But I think there's a much larger conversation to be had, because this does bring me back to when Disney bought Fox. Like, I remember at the time, like all those years ago, it was like, you know, all the people on Twitter, all like your comic book fans and stuff, everyone's like, "Oh, Disney needs to buy Fox because then we get the X-Men." Yeah, yeah. That's all you heard, and everyone like who actually sort of knew anything about it was like, "That's not what this is about," and that's not what people need to be worried about. Like, yeah, it's going to be cool that we get that stuff, but like, that's really not what it's about. And I feel like same here. Like, if Universal goes to Warner Brothers, like DC will be like a huge commodity for them. But there's going to be a whole other backload of like stuff that they can then access. But I wonder why Universal, like if it is true, why Universal want Warner Brothers? Because it's not like Universal, like, are they struggling? I mean,
yeah, I don't think they are struggling. I think if there is an opportunity, I guess they can't say no. I'm not sure. It's because of the properties that Warner Brothers owns. It's the same thing with Disney buying Fox. They wanted the properties, they wanted X-Men, they wanted all of that, right?
Yeah, because I'm just thinking back of like the last, like when you look at like even like 2023, I'm thinking like Universal's biggest movies. Like, they've not had a bad year. Like Fast X, like they've still got the Fast and Furious franchise, which is, they can say it's going to end, but it's not going to. Obviously they had Oppenheimer. Like, they've got Chris Nolan on side now. Which that would actually be quite funny with the whole Chris Nolan leaving Warner Brothers thing and going to Universal.
Yeah, like just being forcibly brought back in. Imagine if that's Universal's whole thing. He's like, Christopher Nolan's like, yo, buy Warner Brothers. So, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that'd be quite funny.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on there. Tell us what you think about this whole concept of Warner Brothers being sold to Universal, guys. Nathan in the chat says, yeah, Disney is even showing Doctor Who next month. like, what the hell? I know that with like the Fox acquisition, they got like X-Files and everything, and so they did get a lot of properties. They got a lot of good content for them to rinse in the future, like you said, with Night at the Museum. So I agree, Cal. I don't think it would be a good thing for DC. I think even though, yes, taking over and having, access to different types of properties is beneficial to a studio, I just don't think in the long run it would be beneficial. I think Universal, it would be beneficial for them, but I don't think it's beneficial for the industry as a whole, right?
No, and the
It's
thing
not.
is, it's that classic thing, competition creates good content, and
Yeah.
if there's less competition, it just means we get more dire content, which that's not what we want as consumers. So it's one of them that I think it's just really scary, all these corporations trying to buy each other. Like, what was the other one that's been, was it Apple buying Amazon, or was it Amazon buying Apple? I can't remember which way around it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It was one of them. And again, that's just like, no, I don't need that in my life, to be honest.
Nope. Yeah. So I want to remind you guys, you can send in super chats to be answered on stream by us. It could be any kind of question or theory you have to do with like Superman, Lois, Arrowverse, DC, to do with DC Studios, or anything that's going on, the CW or the actors strike. I know a lot of you guys are interested in that. We're going to go through all the topics, but yeah, you can keep sending in super chats or any kind of questions that you guys have, and we'll be sure to try and answer them. Okay, so let's move on. We've got Superman Lois to talk about. Now, Deck isn't really up to date with Superman Lois, but it doesn't really matter because he's up to date on what's going on, kind of behind the scenes, with the writers and everything. But we're going to talk about this. So it was just reported a couple of days ago that Superman Lois is losing. Actually, I think it was today.
I think it was today.
There was another report like previously to do with like a writer coming out saying he's not going to be on the writers' room for this season because of the budget cuts. But there was a report by Deadline actually saying Superman Lois is losing 3 writers. I can get it up for you guys because I just had it up earlier. I'll pop it on the screen just to make it easier. So the CW is trimming the writers' room. That is pretty much what the article alludes to. Here we go. So Superman Lois and All American, another CW show, is trimming its writers' room amid budget cuts. So they say the budget cuts that came with Superman Lois and All American Homecomings renew at the CW. So like at the cost of being renewed, all these cuts, Superman Lois is losing like its entire cast apart from the main family and Lex Luthor. So are also impacting the series writers' rooms, which are undergoing downsizing, so removing writers. So Superman Lois is going from 8 writers to 5 for the upcoming 4th season. There are no changes in the writers' room sizes to the other 2 CW returning original scripted series, those 2, but it is affecting Superman Lois. So what do you think about this? What do you think about, the writers getting a deal, but then you see, a network like the CW downsizing on writers? I think it's a bit just contradictory. I don't know.
I think, unfortunately, this is an issue that persisted before the strikes, or even this has been going on for a couple of years now with the CW and, like, say, Nexstar and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just a completely separate issue, to be honest with you, and this is just stuff that they couldn't really deal with until obviously the writers' strike was over. The other big thing is they went from 8 writers now to 5, right? That's what they've gone.
And they've gone down in episodes to 10 episodes in season 4.
And I know that half the cast has been put down to like they've only got like 4 or 5 series regulars, haven't they?
Yeah, like those guys might be guest stars. They might not even show up. So, yeah.
I think the biggest thing this is saying, I could be completely wrong, but season 4 is going to be the last season, surely. They can't survive like this.
Yeah, and if it goes down, like if say the CW wanted to give it a season 5, there's no way they can go bigger. You know, like
No.
they have to contain it or go down, and I don't think it's feasible to go down based on what type of show Superman and Lois is. Like already, I think they're going to be cutting it fine with season 4. Don't you agree? Like it's a
Yeah.
massive show.
Oh, it's
Even if you watch season 1, you can see it straight away.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember when, because I mean, season one is the one season I have seen of Superman and Lois, and you know, when that show debuted, there was like an instant thing in all of us watching it where we were like, "Oh, this is different. This feels different." Like there was an actual like jump in quality in regards to just simply the production design and the production value of it all. Um, it just was so much higher in quality. So, and obviously they've maintained that from season to season. But with the CW just getting less and less of a budget and you know the changes behind the scenes, it's just the show has kind of been going on like a downward spiral, not in terms of quality, but in terms of the support it's getting.
Yeah.
And I think this is just the ultimate kind of culmination of that. Which, like I say, I think is gonna like I wouldn't be shocked if before season 4 debuts we do get the announcement that this is the final season. I just don't foresee it going past this. I really don't.
And quite honestly, I don't know if I want a season 5 on the CW. I want a season 5, but I don't want it on CW. I don't trust them. Like I actually trust Warner Brothers more than them. Because just based on, you know, their canceling patterns and the way that kind of, you know, they threw away the entire Arrowverse pretty much with canceling Stargirl, with canceling Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow. Like those were not just random shows, like they actually had an audience.
Yeah.
And even
especially
though
when they
Superman
were
Lois,
ending in really bad places, like Legends.
yeah,
Like Legends ended on such a big cliffhanger, and I was like, I didn't really like. You know, these are conversations going back to when I was consistent on YouTube back in the day. But you know, I loved Legends of Tomorrow, and then I didn't love what the show became.
me too.
But I was still a fan. I still watched it, and I'm really sad that the show ended the way it did.
Me
Like, I
too.
think they totally should have given it one final season. Just to,
Yeah.
they could have like literally done like a 10-episode final season, like they did with Arrow, and just you know give us a nice wrap up because they didn't deserve it. Same with Batwoman as well. Really, none of them deserved to be axed the way they did.
Same with Stargirl. They really threw those shows down the drain. Like they didn't give them any consideration. Like if they had any care for Legends, they would have allowed them to properly end it, like you said, like Arrow style or whatever. But yeah, that, you know, for them it was like, no, okay, enough's enough. We need to save money, so let's cancel these shows. We
So,
don't
what are
care
the
where it
ratings
ends.
like for Superman and Lois?
So I can check, but I'm pretty sure they're good. They're not amazing, but they're still like one of the best on the network.
Because I'm just speculating what would be the likelihood of Warner Brothers moving it over to Max.
Yeah, well, I think you would get more people watching it because you get more exposure on Max, right, than the CW.
Yeah,
That's just my presumption.
well, the thing
Could
is, the
be wrong.
CW's it seems really like I think sometimes a lot of us forget how small the CW is as a network. Like, especially like us in the UK, obviously we don't have it, but it's not like a huge network. It's quite a niche one.
Yeah.
Whereas Max is obviously it's a nationwide streaming service.
Yeah, and Max you can air in different countries around the world. Like there is HBO in Europe and stuff, so
Yeah,
it's definitely more accessible. So these were some of the ratings for season 3. So these were live ratings, so not afterwards. So 700,000 is pretty much like 600,000, 700,000, I guess, is your kind of average for live ratings, right? And then if you look at season 2 here, it says it averaged about 800,000. So for the CW guys, obviously, if you compare it to other networks and stuff, like, yeah, it's not amazing numbers. Like CBS, for example, expects like in the multiple like millions, and the CW doesn't expect that. CW likes a show to hit 1 million and they will be happy. So if you're in and around that range, I think you're okay. So what do you think, Deck? Do you think those numbers, if they can sustain them, are okay for the CW?
I mean, I think those numbers you're talking about hitting 1 million, that was the CW back then, not the
Yeah, it's
CW
not
now.
now. And I think it'll be less even when Superman Lois comes back because of what they've done to CW. There's no reason for any past CW fan, who has liked any show to come back apart from Superman and Lois, All American, and yeah.
And I honestly think that this gutting of the CW, I don't think it's finished. I still think it's going to happen. I think there was just because they got rid of so much so quickly. There was a couple of stragglers, if you will, and I think they're honestly giving them a slower death, which is like Superman and Lois, All American Homecoming, like these shows that have got sort of these more inbuilt audiences.
They're definitely dragging them along and not giving them any kind of definitive answer as to is this the ending of the show, or are you going to continue? Like we've said before, I would love Superman and Lois to go get a decent budget, continue with one final season 5 on Max. That would be a dream. I really hope James Gunn, who I know likes the show, I hope he somehow convinces. I don't know, like there's got to be a way. That's just the way I look at it. Like, because I think if this is the final season of Superman and Lois, I don't trust the CW to let them have the ability to make it a really good ending. Like, the people that are making the show can make it good, but I feel like we're always going to be like, well, they've been restrained. Imagine what they could have done if they had more freedom, right? So
it's just gonna. I think it's just gonna feel restricted.
Definitely.
And like I say, the ending might not be as satisfying as fans want it to be. Just due to the fact that the writers weren't able to deliver the final season or whatever as they wanted it to be.
Okay, we've got our first super chat to go over. This is from Al Watch. Thanks for the $5 super chat, Al Watch. I really appreciate it. Al Watch says Legends was great. Booster Gold would have been a great member. So actually, they introduced Booster Gold at the end of the show, didn't they? I didn't watch Legends in the final season, full disclosure, because like you said earlier, I kind of fell off in season 4. I will probably go back and rewatch it because I miss the Arrowverse, quite honestly, and it would be nice to go watch some content that's still new to me, right? So I gotta catch up. But yeah, Booster Gold, he showed up in the final season, but that was one of the big complaints, apart from obviously the ending not being a proper ending. What do you think about that? Like, I know your thoughts on Legends, but Booster Gold, that would have been a good addition for a next season, right?
I think Booster Gold was one of those characters that we were always waiting for on Legends. He just made sense, like the sort of character he is. He lent himself to that show really, really well. I do think that the version of Booster Gold we would have got would have been quite different from the comics. Like, I think just purely from what we saw of him very briefly, I think it would have been a very different interpretation. But I mean, he had a funny actor behind it. It was Skins' Donald Faison. I think he was a good choice. And I think he could have created some really fun stuff. I did always speculate, and I did wonder, because obviously in the comics, I believe I can never remember. I think is Booster Gold Rip Hunter's kid, or it's
I think so. Yeah, they definitely have a direct relation.
Yeah, there is a connection there. They could have explored that. Like, I know Rip Hunter was obviously gone. Like, he died back in season 3.
Yeah.
So he was kind of long gone. But that could have been a fun way to, the Arrowverse was never shy of bringing characters back. So it could have been a fun way to bring Arthur Darvill back. I would have loved Booster Gold to have actually, been a part of that final season. And I think that if it was the final season, that was like a really cool, like, big final character to like bring into the show to kind of tie it all together. I just think it makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. And shout out to Al Watch for sending in the super chat. I'm going to catch up on Legends because there's nothing on right now. So
I want to do the same thing, because to be fair, I didn't watch all of season 7 of Legends. I kind of dipped in and out, especially after they did the 100th episode, where they kind of brought, like, after the 100th episode, I was kind of like, I'm kind of done. Like, that was like, because it was such a nice kind of, like, we got to see everyone again, and that was really, really cool. But I want to do the same thing. I want to watch that. I also want to watch the final season of Batwoman, because I didn't watch that either.
Yeah,
and also Superman and Lois. So
you got to do Superman and Lois before the show eventually comes out.
Yeah,
hopefully next summer, I guess. Shout out to Canada Graphs, who is here. Long time no see, Canada Graphs. Canada Graphs says, "Is it true that there is a new Cecile Horton show series coming to the CW for a 10-season, 24-episode per season run?"
That's what we want. That's what the fans want.
We've been waiting for it.
That's the Flash spin-off that nobody knew they wanted.
Yeah, but it's the Flash spin-off that we might get. Who knows? No, I would love to see some sort of continuation of the Flash. I mean, I think, I have a theory in the back of my mind. I think the CW will find a way to make profit, which is what Next Star is all about. But with them, and this is our next topic, which we'll talk about in a minute, with them bringing back ex-CW actors, they've realized, I think they're slowly starting to realize, I don't think they've fully realized yet, but they probably realizing buying random shows, and they've cancelled a bunch of them already that they bought, and they've just put them on prime time. So like weekdays, in the time slots where Arrow used to air with the Flash, Supergirl, and everything, they put those shows there, and they're flopping, like they're insta flopping, like they're getting under 300,000, 200,000 views, and then they're going down and down and down every episode. So I think they're going to slowly realize that they need the fans back. They need to somehow get some audience attraction when it's to do with primetime programming that's not sports or anything. Like, I think they're going to do well with sports. I think they're going to do well with, like game shows and reruns of those, old game shows they used to have on the network. But I think they're seriously lacking something, and they've thrown it away. And I think it's just a theory. I have a feeling they're going to go back and try and scramble. So what do you think about that, Deck? Is it possible? I guess it's always possible, but
yeah, it's always possible. I mean, it's all about money at the end of the day. If they're not making enough money, then they're going to look at, what did make us money in the past. Yeah, they might sell it. I mean, what I think the CW should look at is back in, I would say, around sort of the era of 2017, 2018, 2019, sort of around there, just before COVID, really. The CW had built itself a brand where it wasn't just the Arrowverse. Like, the Arrowverse was obviously huge for them because they had 5 or 6 shows that were all connected in different ways, and people were tuning in for all the different shows, and it kept a consistent viewership, like week to week to week. But they also had other shows as well that kind of, the CW in itself almost became a genre of TV in a weird way. As much as it's memed, shows like Riverdale, The 100, Black Lightning to a lesser extent, but they were all on at the same time as all the other Arrowverse shows, and people were tuning into them because people who were like fans of those shows would watch the other ones as well because they were similar.
They weren't too different. Like, you could continue on. Yeah.
And because of that, they had this really strong viewership of, obviously, like, some shows had higher ratings, some had lower, but for the most part, a lot of CW fans were watching like most of the stuff they were releasing. Whereas now, like you say, what they're releasing is such a mix of audiences. You've got like reruns of game shows and stuff like that, which is very much like, I don't know if it's the same in America, but like here in the UK, like late night, like reruns of like old game shows is like really late night television. Like stuff on like Challenge late at night, like that's only a British audience will understand that, but you'll know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then they've also got sports, which obviously it's quite broad. So I think they will slowly realize over time that they did have something. And they need to kind of bring that back, because I think as well, it's so obvious. They were doing okay before COVID, and then COVID came in, there was a Discovery merger, and everything just got cut. And now the CW is dying, and I feel like there's just an obvious answer as to why. And I'm not saying that the Arrowverse needed to live on forever. Like, all good things have got to come to an end. But the fact that some things didn't get a nice end, and so many things were cut and left audiences unsatisfied, it just caused all of their fans to leave the network, and that's just put them in an even worse spot than they were in to begin with.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, they've pretty much done this to themselves, and yeah, they've got no one else to blame. Obviously, the pandemic didn't help, but then they swooped in, they bought it with the intention of basically, like, what's the phrase, like when someone like buys something and try and spin it for profit or something, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Anyway, that's what they've tried to do here, right? They're just like buying it. Okay, you know, it's not making profit in its current iteration, so let's make it something different. And
But I always thought the CW wasn't about profit. That's what we were always
no,
told.
it wasn't.
Anyway.
It wasn't about it. And then I guess I don't know what happened with Warner Brothers, with CBS and Paramount, the people who were the majority stakeholders. I don't know what happened with them. I think they just gave up. Do you think?
Maybe. I mean, I guess maybe when the merger came in, they just weren't happy with the non-profit style of the CW, and they thought they could spin it for something else. Because yeah, I remember always, you know, when we used to do weekly reviews and stuff like that, we used to look at ratings. It was always just like, oh well, it's not about profit. The CW is not about profit, especially because there was obviously like the CW app as well, which you can get in the US, which is free. Yeah, I honestly think that was just down to the merger, and I think, you know, new management, the suits, just looked at it and went, well, we've just bought this huge thing, and you're telling us that there's a area of it that just doesn't make any money at all. We don't like that. So I think that's probably what it was.
And Canada Graphs points out something. Obviously, we all know about this, but it was the way that they used to get some sort of money back was selling to Netflix. We know the other shows were on Netflix before. They're on Netflix, but it's not like a recurring deal every season because the shows aren't going on.
And not here in the UK either, which is always a pain.
Yeah, very much a pain. But the main thing is now with the current iteration of the CW, beyond those 4 shows they have and the couple of procedurals and stuff they're going to bring in, they don't have much that they can sell to a Netflix. So I don't think they're going to be making money by going for international sales. They are the ones buying cheap shows internationally, bringing them in and rerunning them, which I don't think as a concept is going to work.
No,
in the
but
end,
it's even stuff as well, like physical sales as well. Like these, like I know obviously the physical market is dying, but you know that was still money that could have been made. People used to buy, like I own pretty much the entirety of the Arrowverse on Blu-ray near enough.
Yeah.
People used to buy those things, but the types of shows they're doing now, they can't be released physically. So again, that's another area of profit they're missing out on. Makes sense.
This is true. The CW doesn't own the rights, the streaming rights to Superman Lois, for instance. Like that's one thing that the new guys at the CW have been moaning about in the press, like the fact that Superman Lois is expensive and they don't get too much back from it. Like that's a big problem for them. So yeah, it's kind of in the long run probably more beneficial to Warner Brothers having Superman Lois because they get it in the long run, as opposed to just getting it for, you know, showing it on TV live. But yeah, we have another super chat from Our Watch. Thank you very much, Our Watch, for the second $5 super chat. Our Watch says, Ben, you need to catch up on Legends, Young Justice, but even more, and my current favorite, My Adventures with Superman. Have you watched that, the animated show yet?
No, I haven't. I've heard good things though, because that's the one that like Jack Quaid is Superman, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I think it looks quite cool. But again, here in the UK, we are constantly suffering with shows because we just don't get stuff. So we have to pirate things a lot of the time. But yeah, if it was more readily available, I might have checked it out by now. But yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, I'm in the same position. I just haven't watched it yet, but I've heard really good things about it. So thanks, I'll watch for the recommendation. I'll definitely be doing a proper watch of that. I believe they've actually ordered a couple more seasons of it. So, you know, it's definitely going to be a thing for the future. Plus, also, I will watch Legends and catch up on Young Justice too. I love Young Justice. My Adventures with Superman is on Max. Yeah, it's on Max in America. In England, where both of us are, we don't get access to Max, so
No.
that's pretty much impossible for us.
Yeah. We have to wait for so much stuff.
They always sell it a year later, you know.
Yeah, or it's just like we just have to wait years, or it's on like a lot of stuff goes to like Sky here in the UK, which is like a premium network that you have to pay for.
Yeah, you have to
so it's just it's never easy here unless it is like Netflix or Prime or something like that.
Yeah. So we briefly discussed it before. We'll talk about it a little bit here in a minute, but first things first, please be sure to send in any final super chats that you guys have. We'll be sure to answer them. We're going to keep going for about 10 minutes or so longer, and then we'll be sure to answer your final questions before we end. But we've got a couple of final topics to talk about. So yeah, we briefly talked about this before, but the CW is basically kind of, I wouldn't say taking a U-turn, but in my mind, it's very interesting. I made a video on this the other day. Basically, they picked up 2 drama procedurals. That's basically just a drama show, right? It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's not expensive. It's not a genre show. But the big twist was, and I was quite surprised to see it, to be honest, they actually have so ex-CW actors coming back, which marks a difference from what Nexstar's been doing. They've been buying projects from abroad, bring them in for cheap, and showing them on the network, as I said before. And so with this, they've actually got a show that they're going to be making themselves. It's a CW show. It's not a show that's aired somewhere else. And they brought in Vanessa Morgan from Riverdale. She's a pretty big actor. Like, she will bring in an audience. She will bring in that Riverdale audience. So, my main thing is with this, and we talked about this briefly, but is this a U-turn? Is this the CW realizing we do need some of that audience back because we've thrown it away? So let's do it our own way. Let's do a procedural, but bring back those actors to try and get an audience.
I absolutely think this is the beginning of a U-turn, because what I mentioned before about a few years ago when the CW had their like brand, this is the exact type of show that they would have made back then. Yeah. And again, like the CW back then was very, very loyal to its stars. They would move from show to show. If they were like a lead of one show at one point or a supporting role on one show, they would maybe get a lead of their own. And that's exactly what's happening here. Like a drama procedural, that's the CW's bread and butter, man. Like that's what they do. Like you can call like the Arrowverse shows, obviously genre shows, superhero shows, but deep down, really, when you look at them, they were drama procedurals. Yeah. That's what they were. And in the case of this, like I say, you've got Vanessa Morgan, who was a hugely popular character on Riverdale, has a huge fan base. And again, she was a supporting character on that show, now becoming a lead. This is very similar to when they brought back Katie Cassidy for Arrow back in the day. Like I remember she was known as like CW royalty when she came over to Arrow. So it's just, this is exactly... I do think this is the beginning of a U-turn, because this is just so, like I say, so different to what they've been doing recently, but yet so similar to what they used to do. Yeah. I'm interested to see it though, because I just want to see what kind of, I don't know what kind of vibe it has. If it does have that similar, the tone.
Is it going for a CW tone or not? You know.
Yeah. But yeah.
And how does it look compared to how CW shows traditionally looked? And yeah, so for me, I was completely the same. I feel like this is the start of them turning around a little bit and being like, oh, we kind of made a mistake. So let's, kind of go back and, a couple of shows, see how it does, and try and get back some of those actors. I'm surprised that they convinced the actors. I don't know. I guess it's just a job for them, so it doesn't matter. And the CW has been traditionally nice to ex-CW stars, but it's a different regime. Like, literally everyone's left. So it's going to be very different. But I look forward to these shows. I look forward to seeing how it does in the end. But yeah, that is kind of the news to do with that.
I do suspect that these 2 new procedural shows will kind of have a similar look to what we've seen recently, like just to compare to Arrowverse shows. Like I think it will have a similar look to Superman and Lois, like, where it's got the sort of cinematic black bars and kind of the darker color palette, similar to what Batwoman did as well, and even the Flash started to incorporate it in its final season. I think it'll be like that, I imagine.
Yeah, the CW, the Flash kind of went more Superman Lois by the end. So yeah, I definitely think so. Okay, we're moving on to our final topic of the live stream. If you guys have any more questions or anything you want to ask us, please be sure to send them in the chat, or you can send in any final super chats now. Do it now, otherwise it might be too late and it'll be the end of the stream. But yeah, thank you to everyone that's been watching. Let's go ahead and get into this final topic. So let's briefly talk about the actors' strike. So basically, we've had nothing concrete as of now, but talks are ongoing this week. And I saw a report. I don't know if you saw the report, but there was a report out there saying, I think it was from The Wrap, and they're pretty reputable. Apparently, if they don't come to an agreement this week, the studios, the CEOs of those studios, like David Zaslav, who are in those negotiations, might be putting it off until January, until next year. And that would be a huge thing, because that would not allow any show to go back into production until the new year. And so that pushes back all the release dates. And so what do you think of that, Deck? What do you think?
I mean, well, it's despicable is what it is, but
yeah,
I just don't understand what it's just that typical thing. Like it's one of the things that's always like pointless. It's pointless trying to, comprehend it or fight it, because, for people like us, I mean, because the answer is so obvious and so clear and so simple. It's just these people need to be paid fairly. And it's such a minuscule, tiny amount out of the pockets of these
studios,
these suits at the top who don't see any of this in the day-to-day. And at the end of the day, like, without actors and also without writers, you don't have your business. So pay them fairly, get them back into work, and then business can continue as usual. And you can still continue being assholes, just not to these people. It's mad. I can't believe that this is still, like, I did think that the strikes would have been over by now. Like, once the writer's strike concluded, I thought, okay, give it a couple of weeks and the actors' strike will come back. But it's still going, and if they push it till January, like, they're just going to cause themselves more harm than good. Like you say, shows can't go back into production. Like, yeah, the writers can work, and that's good, but the stuff that they actually need to get going immediately, they can't. Movies that are coming out cannot be promoted, which we've seen the effects of that already in the last few months. Like, movies definitely haven't been performing quite as well due to that. And then again, you've got, like, with the release calendars, you're going to get pushed back again and again and again, and that's just causing problems for everybody. So, like I said, I think there's more talks going on tomorrow, I believe. And that's when they sort of said, if it's not tomorrow, that's it.
Yeah, so it's like a whole big knock-on effect for the next year, but then you'll also see it, beyond that, like into the year after, and it's just going to continue onwards and onwards, because they're going to be scrambling for release dates in like 2 years' time. But for now, they want to get going. They don't have enough content to sustain. They've had enough for the meantime. And they've got around it, and they've been okay, but they've lost so much money, and it's just crazy that they've lost so much money, and they still want to drag this out. Like, they want to prove we are the powerful ones. You can't, like, mess around with us. So keep striking. We're going to cancel your shows, but at the same time, we're losing a bunch of money. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just that thing, isn't it? It's just insecure men, really, at the time, who don't want to be seen to be weak, despite the fact that it's like, no, people just want a fair life. Like, people just want to be able to live and do their job, and, not be worked to the bone just to be able to survive for their families. Like, it's such a simple, bare bones concept that they just can't seem to grasp. And like you say, the knock-on effect of this, if it does carry on, it's just huge. It's tremendously huge, and it's one of those like we've been having these conversations now for the last few months since these strikes have been going on, and it's just going to continue to. It's just going to be again spinning its wheels. It's going to be continuing to go until one of them bends, and I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Armageddon.
Yeah, we'll have a look. I mean, we'll wait and see. We've got 2 super chats. One from Staggervore here. He sends in a $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much, Staggervore. They say, could the performance for Superman and Lois season 4 prompt the CW to try and get more of their former viewers back? Very much so. Like we said, potentially they could do some sort of U-turn. It's not a full U-turn yet. It's just we can see the signs of it potentially starting. I don't know about the performance of Superman and Lois. I guess maybe more so like the online response. Like if it's massive, it could make an impact. What do you think, Deck, about this question?
I think Superman and Lois in this particular conversation is kind of irrelevant because the show is the show. Like it's been going on for 4 seasons. It has its audience. And as I said, I think they're trying to kill it anyway. I don't think the CW and Warner Brothers at large are interested in Superman and Lois at this point. I think the bigger talking point is, like I say, those new shows that they've picked up, because their new shows, like their first seasons, are so much more important than the seasons that are longer running. If they bring in these new shows that are like the old ones and they do well from the word go, that's going to get their attention rather than Superman and Lois season 4, like potentially doing a bit better. I think they will just look at that and go, oh, I mean, it's done better this season, but does it really matter? Whereas they'll look at the new shows and see the uptick in audience and go, so this is what we should be doing. That's how I view it anyway. I could be completely wrong, but that's how I see it from a studio's perspective. I think that's how they would look at it. Yeah,
I think exactly the same. And yeah, anyway, sorry. I'm just reading the next question, but thank you very much, Stagger, for the $4.99 super chat, and a very good question too. For our final super chat of the live stream and one of our final questions, we have Cal here. Shout out to Cal for the $4.99 super chat. Cal says, when the actors' strike ends, when do you think Superman and Lois will start filming? So again, we don't know when the actors' strike is going to end, but okay, let's presume it ends in January, right? Like in a good kind of okay scenario, I guess. When will it start filming? Well, the writers would have been back for a couple of months. So I guess they would have had like, I don't know how fast they write, but I presume like 3 to 4 episodes at least by January. Could be.
I think I'm trying to remember back to how long it took the show, especially when they were like the Arrowverse shows were back on like 22 episodes, because I don't know if maybe they spend longer on episodes if they've got less. I don't know. But I remember them saying roughly, I think it took them around maybe a couple of weeks to write an episode. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. But if the strikes do end in January, I think you'll see a pretty swift response from TV shows and movies across the globe. We saw it with the writer's strike. As soon as that was over, it was like, oh, this is happening, this is back, this is working. And I think it'll be the same with the actors' strike. So long as they've got content to work with, which, like you say, they should do, because the writers have been back since late September, I believe it was, then they should have stuff to work with. So I think with Superman and Lois, like as soon as the strikes are over, I think it'll be pretty immediate.
Yeah, I think they would definitely want to go and jump right in. Like it would be stupid if they waited around, because
I think is the actors are waiting around as well, because the actors can't do anything, like, because not only are they tied contractually, but they also can't do anything else. So they're just waiting. Like people who are on these shows, like in the case of Superman and Lois, Tyler Hoechlin, Bitsy Tulloch, they're waiting for this to come back so that they can work again. So as soon as they get the go ahead to say, oh, you can come back to set, they'll be there.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like at the end of the day, it's their job. Like that's
it's their job. And yeah, some of these actors earn enough money to be okay, but a lot of the actors won't have like 20 years, 30 years of savings because they earn a shit ton of money on, you know, like a big project.
Because that's the conversation with these actor strikes. Like I see, you know, there's a lot of people who look at it and go, "Oh, well, why is I don't know." I don't think he was, but you know, let's just say, for example, like why is Brad Pitt striking? And it's like, it's not about that for him. Like it's about your extras. It's about your people in the background. You know, these really struggling actors who, like you say, aren't these big stars, aren't these big names, don't have endless amounts of cash lying around from the years of films and shows they've been doing. These are just people who have a job and are trying to make a living. And even people like Tyler Hoechlin, you know, he's a relatively big name, but he's not an enormous name. I would presume that he's probably been okay during the strikes. Like I say, I imagine he's probably been, you know, I reckon he's been sustainable. But that's not going to last forever. And I think that, you know, these actors, they need to be able to come back to work so they can get that money. So, yeah, I think it will be a very, very quick sort of call to action as soon as they're back.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, guys. So I think that pretty much does it for this live stream. Thanks, Dec, for joining. We'll be sure to get you back on. Very good conversation, as always. Yeah, it feels like the old days, you know.
Yeah, it really does.
Streaming and doing the podcast, and yeah, it's been a while, so it's good. But yeah, so what do you guys think about all of the stuff that we talked about in this live stream? Thank you also to everyone that has supported by sending in super chats and just commenting in the chat as well and watching throughout. Like I said earlier, go check out Dec's YouTube channel. It's DC Central. You guys can just type it in, DC Central, pretty simple, and you'll find it. Any new videos coming up, Dec? Or
I have got stuff in the pipeline. It's just getting the time to actually film and edit. Working full time. Like YouTube isn't my job, so working full time and, you know, just life outside of that is it's quite hard to make videos, but they are coming along slowly but surely.
Cool. All right, guys, that does it. Thank you for watching. I'll have a video out tomorrow, and I should have a video next day. I've got a couple of big topics. We actually discussed a couple of them in this video that I need to get around to making a video. But yeah, that does it. We'll be back next week for another live stream on Thursday. But yeah, so for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys later. Goodbye.